2. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Bleckman. Phil, how's it going, man?
Yo, what's up, dude? Hey, I'm getting up real close and personal with the camera today because we got something special in the mail team. Look at this. Look at this goodness. Oh yeah,
man.
Zombie attractions. Zombie attractions and legacies, peeps. It's happening.
Look for our deck list at MoxField.com/EternalDurdles.
Yo, please tell me about what MoxField is and how I can put my zombie attraction deck list on there.
MoxField.com is a great deck building website that you should be using. You can follow our link below and sign up. It's free. It's also just super easy to look at, super easy to use. It works on your PC, it works on your Mac, it works on your iPhone, it works on your Android phone, it works on your Linux phone, if that's a thing. Anyhow, you should be using MoxField.com to build all of your decks. They're a sponsor of the show. Shout out to MoxField.com.
Your boy went deep on attractions.
It seems like it, yeah.
We are in. So here's what I did. So each attraction is literally like a nickel.
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, attractions are a dumb mechanic that was released in Infinity. And when I say dumb, I mean dope. So none of them are playable. None of them are actually good, except there's a 1-mana 2/1 zombie that when it dies, you open up an attraction. To understand how attractions work, they're random. You play 10 of them. Hopefully you get the good ones. That's about it. But this creature right here, this 2/1 that opens up an attraction, it's just incidental value. If you've ever played with the Monarch or the Initiative and you just understand how like just getting free stuff every turn just ultimately mounts into an insurmountable advantage, that's what I'm thinking this might do for the Zombos. So we're gonna give it a go. We're gonna give it a try. It's gonna be nothing more than a fun F&M deck, but you best believe you're gonna get lethal schemed by me.
Yeah, it's a zombardment, but it's more like a barbecue.
Zombie attractions. Zombie attractions.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Something
like it's gonna be awesome. Like the incidental, like constantly, like all of these effects with the attractions that you like actually want are just like incidentally like rebuying another piece of cardboard. Like there's a bunch of attractions that are just like draw a card or scry, and then there's one in particular that's like rebuy a creature out of your graveyard. And it's like if you're going and stacking all your creatures to do stuff, you know, the lifetime pass holder is another reason in all of the times that I've ever tried to make zombies work as a tribe, that it's like, do you want to go down the village rights route and go like high volume, which means that all of your cards more or less need to do the same thing? Or do you want to play Diabolic Intent and Demonic Tutor yourself into, you know, combos like, you know, Ashnod's Altar, or what's it called? Phyrexian Altar.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you want incidental bullets that you can combo out with, or do you want to go in volume? And for a long time, I was like, it's got to be volume because none of the zombies good. No, they're not good. None of them are good cards. But now we're going to the carnival.
Yeah.
We're going to the fair.
Well, so this episode's a little wonky because Phil and I did not talk about what we're going to talk about before this episode started. So we're kind of walking into it right now. I mean, there's a couple.
I know what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the artwork for the new spoilers for Dominaria, or for Brothers War, rather.
For Brothers War. Let's talk about the artwork for the new spoilers for Brothers War. I was going to go down a different route, but I like this route much better.
I'm down to go down your different routes as well, but I want to talk about the artwork for Brothers War because what I'm thinking is going to happen in Brothers War is it's a artifact based set, and I think like I'm thinking, what are the potential artifacts that we're going to get now that we know that Urza and Mishra's like alliance, like color identities? Yeah, Urza's in blue white, and Mishra is in black red. So Mishra is going to be very aggressive. It's going to be about getting you dead. So black red artifacts or anything that is in his alignment is going to be aggressive. And so I don't think anything's going to make it into Legacy. But maybe there's going to be something for Painter, right? Maybe there's some combo card for Painter.
Sure.
But on blue white side, I'm interested in what artifacts we're going to get for blue white, because we've already seen the Urza meld card, the 5-mana artifact that's like ETB, kill a thing, draw 2 cards or something else. But at 5 mana, that card's already good enough in an Ancient Tomb, you know, Karn format. Like your mono-colored Stompy decks that want card draw or a kill spell, like your 5-mana artifact is totally fine, particularly as a wish target for off of Karn. So in my mind, that's already going to see some amount of play. I think it's literally called the Might Stone and the Weak Stone.
Yep.
but they released like they did another session on their Twitch channel where they were like talking about the world building, and they released half of the set's artwork, like 100 pieces of art.
Whoa.
So if you want to, if you want
put some of that, put some of that up here.
Yeah, it's on. It was somebody had, on Reddit pretty much got it all together.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. I'll find. I don't know. We'll find it. But there were some pieces of artwork in particular that I thought were interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of vehicles. You know, I think like we didn't have vehicles last time the Brothers War was here, and now we do. And there's going to be a bunch of vehicles going into combat with each other. So I expect like, you know, your Grease Fang Pioneer players to get something spicy.
Yeah. The best quote so far I've seen on this is Urza's out here making robots to bring his robots to robot battle.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good summary of what I expect the set to be like. But I do think that like there's going to be potential for like incidental trinkets that actually have really solid appeal because there's a Saga's busted. And so I'm anticipating like looking at the artwork.
Some one-man artifacts, of course, yeah.
Yeah, anything that's 1 or 0 is going to be where I think the money's going to be in the set. But I think there's potential that the deck that has the most to gain are going to be the Urza Saga deck. So it's going to be Painter and 8-cast. And given that I imagine for the Brothers War, it's the 30th anniversary of Magic. It's the biggest story in the game's history. I imagine that they're going to, if they're going to follow the same trajectory that they followed for the past couple of years, they're just going to push shit to like the absolute moon.
Yeah.
And so I anticipate Brothers War being busted. It also seems pretty clear that the last meld card is going to be Titania and Argoth. So they spoiled the artwork. Okay.
So there is going to be one more meld card, which makes sense because we haven't seen a green meld card yet. So that makes, you know, like that sort of fills in the gap there. Yeah, and even with the commander decks are Grixis and Esper, and there's no green. So
yeah, they're going to complete the cycle of so that every color is melded in some way. So you have blue white for Urza, black red for Mishra, and then mono green. And of the artwork that they spoiled, it pretty much is. It seems fairly obvious given the story and given the artwork that it's going to be Titania and Argoth. So they spoiled an artwork for Argoth, which I imagine is just a land, and then they spoiled an artwork for Titania, which is going to be a legendary creature, a legendary green creature that does something with lands. And then they printed another artwork of Titania, where literally she looks like she is the tree from
Full Ren and Sixing it.
Little Ren and Sixing it. So
yeah,
it's pretty obvious that that's going to be the meld. What that's going to be is probably something along the lines of like, I would imagine like mass artifact destruction in some way.
Yeah, why not?
Because
they do be hating on the artifacts over there in Argoth.
Yeah, I mean the whole storyline is that like she's made up of natural matter, and that's like her melding is like made up of natural materials as opposed to Mishra and Urza, which is all synthetic. So it's like, okay, yeah, it would make sense that, you know, her natural thing is just going to be gigantic naturalizers, and they've shown in the past couple of sets, particularly in Dom United, with that giant gorilla creature that's like a 5/7 for 5 that just like nuke shit every turn. So they're happy to play in that space, particularly for Commander, to like, you know, not have decks be able to go off all the time. So I imagine that is the space that's going to play in. So before we jump in further, talking about zombie attractions and how sick Infinity has been for our nerd card game, what is it that you wanted to discuss today?
You know, I didn't actually want to discuss it. I was just going to, if we ran out of ideas, and I don't think we have.
I'm literally holding zombies for zombie attractions. What do you mean we're going to run out of ideas? I've never ran out of an idea in my life. I'm excited about a 1/4.
I was going to talk about the like Blotatog thing that we were talking about before. I really don't want to get into it because, like, man, I'm trying to get a job at WotC. I don't want to be saying all this. Like, I don't want to be caught saying all this bad stuff about their PR moves. But that's, to me, like, it's hard to read that and not be like, what? Who? Take the mic away from that guy. You know, like
you can say anything negative if you want, man. Pleasant Kenobi and Professor, they dunk on WotC all the time.
I agree.
Still get like all those promos and shit.
Look,
so you're
I'm always going to err on the side of how I actually feel about this stuff. I'm not gonna, you know, like what use are we if we're just like PRing it the whole time? That's crazy.
So what is the issue that you have with what did Maro say? What is your issue with it?
So my issue is the classic, like Maro says this a lot, the whole like 75% of players don't know what a planeswalker is or like have never played competitive Magic. And I think when we were talking about it in our chat, Nate brought up a really good point. like everyone is living their life online. Like literally everybody in the world is living their life online constantly, right? So even the people who didn't know about planeswalkers or don't play Magic and use the rules or something, I don't know what he's getting at exactly. Even those people would leak out. You would see them. I have never once met a person who's like, I don't know what a Magic tournament is. And I'm talking about people who don't even know, who don't even play Magic. So the idea that someone rolls into like a Walmart and is like, I guess I'll just buy these cards and then like just jam them together like two 8-year-olds at a lunch table, like making up the rules to Pokemon. Like, I don't understand why, like, his response was about like how design works and how they cater design to like casual players that don't, that apparently don't know anything about the game, don't play by any of the rules of the game, make up their own rules. Why are you even designing cards for these people? I just don't get it. Like I can't fathom the reason why you would even reply to somebody. Like, I have to assume it's in good intention, but why would you reply to somebody with this information by being like, you know what, 75% people that buy our game don't even care about our game, and that's the people that we care about more than the people who are super invested in franchise players that do care about the game, that are out there sharing the game with their friends. Like, I just, it boggles my mind when that happens. It's just like pure, it hurts to have to say, like, why are we allowing this guy to like type that stuff and then put it on the internet? Like, Hasbro, I'm a shareholder. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah, my guess would be,
I like Maro a lot. Like, I think for the most part, like, he's very good for the game. I would not want to see him go. We had this conversation in the Discord too about like the game would be different without him. But like, why? What does that take about? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, if Maro wasn't around, I wouldn't have zombie attractions. So
exactly. I mean,
we got to start there.
Well, that's what one of the things I was saying is that it seems like every time we see a tweet or a Blogatog or whatever about this, it comes off terribly. First off, it comes off sounding like somebody who's saying, you know what, I don't want to have you complain about the job I'm doing, which is a service job as far as I'm concerned. You're making cards for people like me to play a card game for, so it is a service job, right? You're in service of us who buy the cards, right? And you're saying, I don't want your feedback. I just want to do what I do without anyone talking to me about it. And also let me make joke sets constantly. Like, that's how it reads to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different thing, like making joke sets and all of that stuff. That's resource allocation. I mean, I think that the whole, like, you know, appealing to casuals and like the people who
I think that's
just
fine. Like I play casual. Well, I mostly play casual now.
Their whole thing is that they play against casual. I mean, I'm talking, when I say casuals, I mean the people that you were talking about that are like, I don't
even know the rules.
Buy some cards at the store. Yeah.
They don't exist. I fail to believe that is a 75% of the people that have bought Magic cards just like open up a pack and are like, I don't know what to do with these. I guess I'll just shuffle them around. Or they're saying that that only financial sharks who like buy cards and just put them away are the 75% of people who don't know what a planeswalker is. I just can't perceive how that's possible.
I would venture to guess that the majority of people that like when they say, you know, 50 million people or whatever it is around the world that play Magic, the number of people that play it like us are infinitesimal by comparison.
For sure. I'll be the first one to agree that casual Magic players outnumber by zounds.
That's
the amount of people that play the game on our level, for sure.
The people that they want to go for, and this actually reminds me of every time the conversation about them appealing to casuals comes up, it always reminds me back when I used to work for wrestling, when I wrote for pro wrestling. The target, we were always instructed as we were going through storylines, whenever we wanted to do something like detailed or like actually push the envelope a little bit, they would always rein us back to be like, think of the casual, think of the person that's tuning in for the first time ever and has no idea what's going on, because the number of people that like would flip to the channel and see what's going on and you don't want them to turn away is so much higher than the people that are already tuning in.
Yeah, the people that are invested. Yeah.
So the people that are already tuning in, it's like you already know that they know the storyline. You don't need to help them out. It's similar. Like,
I agree. I think that's. I actually, as a game designer, I think, Maro's stance on like not catering to enfranchised players is fine. We're gonna buy the game either way. But like coming out and just saying like that we build this game for people that don't even play it, like that's crazy. I mean, that's what 30 is about. That's what Magic 30th anniversary is about, right? It's about creating Bitcoin for Magic cards, right? Like that's what
clearly do design. They clearly do design for the people that play it, so much so that they like. I mean, I think Modern Horizons, like both Modern Horizon sets, I think are. I look at them and think that they are egregious. I really dislike arbitrary power creep for the sake of it to like, you know, switch up formats and sell people on cards. But that is explicitly designed for us. That is not designed for the casual.
Yeah.
You know, so like it's not that that they're not designing for us. It's that when they do, it's targeted, and it turns out that it doesn't feel like it because those sets kind of overhaul our whole experience, right? So it's like we're not appealing to you with this, we are changing your game with this, and that should be exciting to some degree, but then ultimately it means that we don't play with the old toys that we liked as well. So it's like now there's new toys, so it doesn't feel like it's for us, because what feels like for us is like the things that we enjoyed playing with before.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to dive too deep on this because like I said, I've already done my rant, and I apologize, but like something has to be said. That's crazy. But
yeah, I think it's a hedge. I would hedge where your thoughts are. I agree to an extent that like if they're putting a lot of resources behind, you know, the players that don't know what a planeswalker is, well then why that begs the question. That begs the question: why don't they know what a planeswalker is? Since that's
that's
whole
a fail.
Game thing.
That's a fail of marketing.
It feels like a self-own if the majority of people in your game don't know the characters in your game, right? Like if I'm looking to join in, that's similar to me. It's like if Versus System started back up and they were look 75% of the people who play Versus System don't know who Superman is.
That's like it's like saying that of all the people that know about D&D, the only people that know about 12-sided die are the people that have linked In My Garage by Weezer to the 12-sided die, and they don't actually know why a 12-sided die exists.
75% of the people true. 75% of the people who play D&D
say that out loud.
75% of the people who play D&D don't know what a dice is. They don't know what dice is. Yeah. So you have to design your game as though they don't know what dice is.
I don't know. I'm saying do better. That's all. Do better. Do better.
I think it's also that like that whole notion of like Maro's gimmick of, you know, we have to appeal to the 75% of people who don't know anything about anything.
It's there for the negative content loop too. Like the negative feedback about that. Like I'm doing it right now, right?
Oh, he's not thinking that far. He doesn't care about that.
Of course he is. He wants people to talk about this stuff.
No way.
100%.
Dude,
I think
too busy.
That's
he's
100%
too busy trying to figure out whether or not Clown Extruder is a reasonable name to put on an attraction. There's no way he's like, you know what I need to do? I need to incidentally say this thing that I assume people are going to care about negatively, and two legacy guys on a podcast.
It's got to be relevant. And look, it's working, man. Hasbro just announced that Magic the Gathering is its first ever $1 billion brand. That's crazy.
You know what's cool?
If you think
$1 billion.
about that, like $1 billion, right? That's just a number we can't fathom. I truly can't. But if you think about it like this, Monopoly was built in the 1930s. Monopoly's been around for about 90 years, right? Magic the Gathering has been around for a third of that time, literally a third of that time, and has eclipsed it, and in my opinion is probably more of a household name now. Like if you cut off the boomer generation, like there are more people in Gen X and like children to like whatever the current Gen Z is not like Zoomers. There's something after Zoomers now, right? I don't know, but I think that more people might know about Magic the Gathering or at least more people would have played Magic the Gathering that aren't boomers than have played and completed a game of Monopoly, because no one plays Monopoly. That game is hot garbage.
You know, it's a shame that they never came out with Monopoly Secret Lairs. Otherwise, they would have also made $1 billion. You know,
could you imagine?
Could easily have turned that around. Yeah. I think that the whole idea of appealing to casuals is more so that they need to make stuff cool as opposed to like actually involving their design. I don't think Maro is going into a design sesh and being like, okay, we have to appeal to casuals, therefore let's put a novel on every book, on every card. Let's make sure that there are no vanilla creatures in Magic anymore, right? Like the last several sets, there were 0 vanilla creatures. Like that's just that is a thing of the game's past.
I don't care about vanilla creatures.
But I'm saying
it doesn't matter to me.
If you were actually appealing to the players that have never played or don't know what
of course
a planeswalker
but
is,
it doesn't matter. You
putting
can
a book or a novel
put
on
a book
card,
on them because they're making up their own rules. It doesn't even matter. They're just looking at the picture and jamming them into each other. My Charizard beats your Bulbasaur because he's cooler looking.
We don't know that. We don't know that. I mean,
that's what he's saying.
Here's a gauge. Here's a gauge. One time when I was trying to teach somebody how to actually play Magic for the first time, right? Literally, a guy comes into the shop. It's him and his son, and they're like, "Hey, we'd like to play Magic." I'm there waiting for an event, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll run you through it real quick." I show them like they got 2 starter decks, and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, shuffle those up, and we'll open our hands and we'll start playing." And I was like, "Okay, here's your mana source, whatever we got there." And then I said, "Okay, in order to cast this spell, right? All of these things are spells. In order to cast this one that you want to play, you have to tap your mana. So go ahead and tap your mana." And he literally tapped the top of the card.
Yep.
He didn't turn it.
That'll happen.
Touched it.
I've seen that before. Yep.
So it's like that was a moment for me where I was like, I realized we speak a whole different language.
Yeah, it's an enfranchised word.
It's a whole different language that
when
like,
I teach
somebody coming through it for the first time would need all of that explained. And I'm over here thinking that all of the lingo, all of the jargon simplifies the game.
It does. It does simplify the game, but you have to learn it first.
You have to learn it first.
Anytime you can take several words and condense it into one word, you're doing a good job.
Totally better.
Like design wise, as long as your audience can grok it. If they can't grok it, it doesn't matter.
Dude, I fully agree. I'm waiting for them to keyword loot, but until then, speaking of words being simplified and making it better, shall we talk about how they added Surveil and Landfall to a bunch of cards? They added a bunch of cards.
Good on them. That's a plus.
Buddy,
I love it.
It's great, but why didn't they just do it from the get?
We know that they'll never answer that.
Dude, consider just as Surveil 1 now. Draw a card. Surveil 1, draw a card.
I love it. I like
Search for Us contest says Surveil 1 during your upkeep.
Disinformation campaign is maybe playable now.
Disinformation campaigns all of a sudden really interesting for a Grixis control deck, right? Because it's like the things that you have to do in order to get there. It's like, okay, well, as content gives it to you every turn, Consider gives you that. Like, you do have to make concessions. Like, these aren't like the top tier playable cards.
You have to choose different cards, yeah.
But now,
which is great. That's great. That's an amazing part of this game. Is like, if awesome. You're building around this deck, you have to choose cards that may not be as good as Ponder or Opt or whatever.
But now
Preordain,
But now that they have embraced Landfall and Surveil effectively, as I assume that they made those changes because they're evergreening those mechanics, right? They literally use them every set, so I don't understand why it wouldn't be evergreened. I don't know if they have officially said that they're evergreen, but they did go back and errata those cards.
I think that they are evergreen now. Yeah.
But one thing that we do know is that there are cards that care about Surveil. There are cards that say when you Surveil, do something. There's one in particular. It's like it's a 3/1 vampire that when it ETBs, you can exile something from a graveyard. And then if you Surveil, you can pay life and return it from your graveyard to your hand when it's in the yard.
Sick.
I forget what it's called, but it's literally a 3/1 lifelinker for 1 black. ETB, exile something from the yard, and then if you Surveil while it's in your graveyard, you can pay 3 life and pick it back up. And I get that that's not a legacy playable card, but the idea that there are cards that, like you were talking about, Disinformation Campaign, which is when it's an enchantment that when it ETBs, you draw a card and your opponent discards a card, so it's a +1, and then it says when you Surveil, you can pick it back up. So you can replay it. It's in the space of it's like very Uro in its way, and it comes down, it will put you up a card, and then you have ways to recur it. And being able to recur it with those cards now, like Consider recurs it, Search for His Contest recurs it. Like Lazav's playability, I mean, he was only around for Dreadnought. He's been very fringy in Dreadnought decks, but now there's if there's ever another any other supplemental
if you're playing Surveil, it does enable Lazav as well. Like, maybe you put something from your Grixis control deck in the yard and you're like, okay, cool. Like now I can use that.
It's interesting too, because now that they're like those Surveil cards matter, I'm interested to see if like in the future, if a Murktide ever goes and then they're looking for their fat Tarmogoyf replacement, There is the 1-mana 2/2 with Defender that gets a +1/+1 counter every time you surveil, and then once it has 3 +1/+1 counters, it no longer has Defender.
Otherworldly Phantasm?
I don't know, but like it's just a 2/2 with Defender. It's not going to do anything. So think of that similar to like your Tarmogoyf comes down as a 1/2 or an 0/1, right? And then it gets bigger as the game progresses. But if you have DRC, you can turn that on real quick, and it's another 1-mana threat that just gets gigantic. And it will continue to grow. Like it loses Defender after you have 3 +1/+1 counters, but every time you surveil, it just continues to get a +1/+1 counter. So at blue mana, it's like, okay, well, if we play now if we are interested in this space, like that could be the spot where like another card that comes onto the radar once Murktide gets the axe in the eventual future when it does.
Yeah, I can't find it.
You do know what card I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly what card you're talking about.
Yeah. It is from the Ravnica cassette, and I remember I played it in. I've tried to play it in. What I wanted to do is I remember I wanted to play that card in Pioneer, but Consider at the time didn't say Surveil. So I was like, well, fuck me. Like my best enabler for this card that could potentially be good, I don't get to play with. But I was also doing like, I wanted to play it with Consider and Lazav and like all these things that like incidentally I'll say Surveil on them, and then you just get all these additional bonuses, and it was great.
Thoughtbound Phantasm is what it's
Thoughtbound
called.
Phantasm. The other thing that I think is cool now is that if they're evergreening landfall, it also means that they can start getting into a space of, rather than whenever a land enters the battlefield, you can go whenever you landfall.
Enchantment Fall.
Like I wonder if it's literally
isn't that what all the Eidolons have?
I wonder if they just condense the words when a land enters the battlefield to when a land falls.
Yeah, I think that's
when you
fine.
landfall. Right,
when you landfall, when you
so like rather than
literally
when you play a land,
they should just change that. Instead of when a creature enters the battlefield, it should just be called Creature Fall.
Yeah, so like I mean, you can
that's a great shortcut. Cut down on space on the card. Like I don't have to read 7 words to get Creature Fall.
Right. I mean, well, now that they're
landfall.
like Creature Fall, they have in right now they have that as a mechanic called Alliance from Streets of New Capenna, right? So they have that, but they like landfall, like also like if somebody were to be like, what does landfall mean? You kind of get a sense that you would be like, yeah, when it enters the battlefield, like that's fine. But if there's a bunch of cards that care when a land enters the battlefield, and now if all of those cards can just be routed to be like, yeah, this card has landfall, do X or whatever, that you can condense that language, and now that would open up a whole new pool of cards for playability if landfall is a thing that matters.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to see how far back they go with the errata. So far, I think they've only errated like 16 cards or something like that. But if they adopt
they can't do Horn of Greed because Horn of Greed isn't technically landfall.
What is Horn of Greed?
Horn of Greed is whenever you play a land. So it has to be specifically like a land comes from your hand into the battlefield instead of like Rampant Growth.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you could also say when you
that's a big deal in Commander because that's like a whole thing.
Yeah, you could preface that and be like when you landfall from hand.
I guess it's already. I mean, that reads better than like the new. I don't know if Horn of Greed is on the reserve list. So if they'd ever read.
Because here's the thing: if you say when you play a land, I imagine that might be like, let's say I Rampant Growth. I might consider, like, if I'm a new person that doesn't know how the wording is specified, like I might assume that when I play a land, like
it doesn't actually.
You know what I mean?
It's not actually going to work that way because there's the non-black 4-color commander. I forget what they're called. It's the 2 Greek guys. When at the end of turn they let you put a land into play from your hand, like everybody gets to either draw a card or play a land from their hand. Mm-hmm. But it's not the same thing as playing a land. It's like put a land into play from your hand will not like make Horn of Greed work. It's a whole thing. So it basically, if you're cheating a land into play and it doesn't count as like one of your, I played this land from my hand, Horn of Greed doesn't work. It's a nightmare rules wise. It's like, it's like humility as far as like layers and stuff is concerned. It's a nightmare.
Here's the challenge. Here's what'll be our send off. This is a challenge to all of our listeners out there in a rules question of how you actually go about doing this in play. Okay. You have Shieldred the Apocalypse in play, right? Our new 4-mana 4/5 that says whenever you draw a card, gain 2 life. Whenever opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life, right? Mm-hmm. Also in play, you have Sylvan Library. It is your draw step. You have drawn 2 additional cards off the activation of Sylvan Library. Shieldred triggers. You're going to draw 2 life for each of those cards that you drew. How does that work? How does it work now?
You
do
gain
you
6
resolve?
life.
Do you get, so you gain what? You gain 2 life first in your draw step, right? You've drawn a card.
Those are all
gain 2 life.
triggers, so they trigger off of the
Sylvan
draw.
Libraries. So Sylvan Library triggers with Shieldred's trigger, right? So you're going to gain 2 life, and then you'll get to choose to draw 2 more cards if you want to.
The Sylvan Library is interrupted by Shieldred's triggers.
Right, but now you have
but
now you've drawn 2 cards off your Sylvan Library, and those triggers go on the stack. Now, do you resolve the Sylvan Library before gaining 2 life for each card?
Yes. No, sorry, you do not. You do not. You'll gain that life. There's nothing to interrupt those life gain.
But you haven't resolved Sylvan Library yet.
Doesn't matter. You put those triggers on the stack. There's nothing above them. So like think of it like this. Here is the draw from the Sylvan Library, right?
Right.
Here is Shieldred's triggers.
Right.
Okay, what happens? How do you resolve the stack from the top down, right?
The thing is that that goes on the stack, but you don't resolve, like, you can't resolve other triggers until you resolve the other effect. You've
but that's underneath. That's over here. These have to resolve before you can resolve this. So then you would gain the 6 life. Now you have to finish resolving this.
That's so you're saying that you're going to gain the 100%. Life before you have to decide whether or not to pay to keep cards off the Sylvan Library.
I'm saying that's how it works. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty positive I'm correct.
That's the question going in for all of our listeners who are judges out there. Obviously, the only people that listen to this cast are judges because we're the best cast for that. So judges, tell us if that is correct.
Only judges. That's a new website we're making where it's like all explicit judge content.
Yeah, it's literally just humility content. Yeah, it's just like it's just
talking about
the crazy layers.
Yeah. Anyhow, I think that's a good place to stop for this week. Again, check out MoxField. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. We're trying to get up to that 1,000 person count, but we're like 2 or 3 away from being at 300. That's a big deal for us on YouTube. If you you listen to this on only on podcast stuff, we're available everywhere, obviously. But if you could jump to YouTube and just like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, that'd be a huge favor to us. So I just want to get that out there. I want to say thank you to all of our Patreons. You guys have been really loyal to us lately. I know that we take that little break in the middle of the summer, and everyone's like, "Are you guys going to quit too?" We're not quitting. We're doing this every week. We obviously
we're not quitting. We're playing zombie attractions. You best believe next episode I'm going to tell you how this went, how this a glorious experiment goes.
I can't wait. Well, I think with that, let's call it. Phil, I'll see you next week.
Deuces.
Hey, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out this other video, and if you can, please support us on patreon.com.